So now that we've discussed about data visualizations and how to represent data in different ways, we can combine all of these charts into what we call an executive dashboard or an informational dashboard. And it will have a combination of different types of charts that represent data that would be important for an organization. So let's say this is an executive here. We can see something about the margin, expenses, and revenue. So profits, expenses, and revenue. And here we can see a very easy visualization of the time value here at the bottom. And then also the trend of the profit over time. And what's really great about this particular visualization is that it allows the executive to compare from the previous year, right? So that's really informative for the executive. Now, we also see that in the same form in a column chart here, and also a column chart here. Now, what's really interesting is that if you notice on this revenue chart, notice at 50 there's a line, and this probably means something to the decision maker or the executive, right? So so this dashboard provides some information, but also will provide some information to some threshold values and possibly some goals. But also here is a very quick meter, right? So this is the current status of the data, right? This particular meter here, and here if it's down below at this point, that's good. If it's here, we need to be cautious. If it's up here, we're in the red zone, right? And we have some nominal ranges here. Now the one on the left, it appears that this is support expenses per month, and this is operational expenses per month, right? So if you were an executive looking at this, you can see that you know, we have a red value back here, but right now the executive is kind of managing it and keeping an eye on it with this really tight set of parameters here, calling this to be low and the other one to be high. And they're already in that excessive range to begin with. And of course, down below, looking at sales distribution, you know, where is it that they sell most of their goods? Here we see a color scale, and I always recommend that you have a color scale that will be friendly to colorblind people, right? So there's different types of color blindness. Typically a blue to red ends up being a very strong color set for color blindness. Blue to yellow, I can't recall how good that is for color blindness, but it's something to pay attention to. All right, so performance dashboards display all the required information. It needs to be clear without distraction, and some type of information or all that information can be assimilated quickly. So there's 3 layers of information. There's monitoring. It allows the executive to be able to monitor what's happening in the business. There's some level of analysis. We saw previously where we were looking at the profit margin and then looking at it in comparison to the previous year. And then there's some management opportunities, right? So the the gauge, let's go back to it. The gauge here, we have seen these little pinpoint items here that allows this executive to be able to make a management decision on when certain thresholds exceed levels they're not comfortable with, and they can move forward. So we're going to include in this a monitoring, analysis, and management, and this is what makes a really strong dashboard design. So what to look for in dashboards: we want to make sure it highlights data that require action. It shouldn't require a lot of training. You should be able to combine data from multiple sources. You can drill down, it's dynamic, and it requires very little coding to get it up and running. Any kind of dashboard that takes a lot of coding to get it done is just not a strong enough platform. And as we're seeing in this class, we've been working with Tableau, and Tableau has a lot of easy to use advantages that can get people up and running real quick. All right, so also some best practices are listed here. We don't get into a great deal of dealing with key performance indicators within the industry standard, but a lot of times that businesses will have something that they'll say is a very key performance indicator for their business. So for example, they may argue that in their business, if they have a profit margin of 12% or more, they're doing well, and if they have 12% or less, they're not doing well, and then they start creating some executive actions to be able to increase that profit margin. So that might be a benchmark KPI, key performance indicator. So we also want to be able to wrap everything in context. We want to make sure that it's meaningful and it's valid. We prioritize and rank any kind of alerts. Also, if you're in that process of developing a dashboard for someone, you always want to get users' input. And users' input is the most important thing when it comes to any kind of development task. The 3 levels that we talked about: monitoring, analysis, and management. Picking the right visual constructs, or I like to think of as the right visualizations, and allow people to make analysis really at the touch of a button. All right. So that's the end of chapter 2. We'll start on chapter 3 next week, and I hope that you've enjoyed this portion of data visualization for CIS 3060.